what if everything we've ever believed about the symbol of American heroism was a lie? What if Captain America, the man we've trusted for generations, the man who stands for justice, sacrifice, and purity wasn't the man we thought he was? What if behind that shield, behind those blue eyes filled with conviction, there was something else? Something darker, colder, calculating. Something that didn't just fight evil, it was evil. Sounds insane, right? But what if I told you that the most unthinkable twist in the entire Marvel universe has been staring us in the face for years? Hidden in plain sight, coded through comics, hinted in timelines, whispered in inconsistencies that we've brushed off as writing errors or alternate universes. What if Captain America has always been Dr. Doom? To even suggest that sounds blasphemous. The ultimate betrayal of everything Steve Rogers represents. But sometimes the biggest truths in stories aren't found in what's told. They're buried in what's never questioned. And when you start questioning the myth of Captain America, when you peel back the golden image of the perfect soldier, the cracks begin to show. So let's start from the beginning. Not the one we know from the movies, but the real beginning, the one hidden in time, in science, in obsession. Steve Rogers was a man of faith, not religious faith, but faith in systems and symbols, in the belief that good can be manufactured. The serum that made him wasn't magic. It was science pushed beyond morality. And the man who perfected that serum, Dr. Abraham Erskine, didn't come out of nowhere. His methods, his vision of creating the perfect man, directly descended from European scientific obsessions with transhumanism, the very same kind of philosophy Victor Von Doom studied decades later. Here's where things get strange. When Doom's origin story in the comics is studied closely, his experiments with time, alternate dimensions, and body transference, especially his early work in soul displacement, line up perfectly with missing pieces in Captain America's timeline, particularly between his death in the ice and his reappearance decades later. Officially, Cap was frozen, but scientifically, does that even make sense? Frozen for 70 years and his cells just wake up? His mind intact, his memories untouched, his moral compass unchanged? The serum kept him alive, sure, but what about his consciousness? What if it didn't just preserve him, but opened him, made him a vessel? This is where Doom's shadow falls across Steve Rogers' history. See, Victor Von Doom wasn't just a sorcerer or a scientist. He was a man obsessed with one thing: control. The one man in the Marvel universe who refused to bow to chaos. Every time we think Doom is destroyed, he comes back, smarter, stronger, calmer. What if that's because he never truly dies, he just relocates? And if there was ever a body worthy of his mind, a perfect vessel to inhabit, to rebuild, to redeem in the eyes of the world, it would be Captain America. But why Steve Rogers? Why not Tony Stark or Thor or anyone else? Because Doom's mind isn't fueled by greed or chaos. It's driven by the pursuit of order. He doesn't crave wealth or power for power's sake. He craves perfection. And what's more perfect than the world's most beloved soldier? A man who can literally inspire obedience with a single speech? Let's rewind to the moment Steve is found in the ice. Every telling of that event has slight variations. The coordinates differ. The way the body is preserved changes. Even who finds him isn't consistent across universes. In one version, Namor finds him. In another, it's S.H.I.E.L.D. In some, he's barely alive. In others, he's perfectly preserved. What if those inconsistencies aren't mistakes, but symptoms of tampering? Doom is a master of manipulating time streams. He's altered his own past to erase failures. What if during one of these experiments of one of Doom's countless journeys into alternate realities, he found a world where Captain America was dead in the ice and saw his chance? A body with the perfect serum, muscles intact, brain structure preserved, moral purity written into his reputation. Doom could insert his own consciousness into that vessel and emerge not as a dictator feared by the world, but as its savior. And when Captain America woke up, who was there to question it? The world had changed. S.H.I.E.L.D. needed a symbol. They needed hope, not scrutiny. But here's where things get even more sinister. After Steve's return, notice how his personality subtly changes. In the earliest comics, he's emotional, fiery, impulsive. But post-freeze, he's detached, stoic, almost eerily calm, strategic, manipulative when needed. He talks about freedom but acts with authoritarian precision. He commands loyalty, He forms secret factions. He divides heroes while claiming to unify them. Remember Civil War? That wasn't Captain America versus Iron Man, it was Doom's philosophy versus Stark's technology. Doom has always despised reliance on machines. He sees them as symbols of weakness, of dependence. Tony Stark is the machine. Steve Rogers, however, represents the organic perfection Doom worships. Body, mind, discipline. And in that war, Doom, disguised as Cap, wins not by violence but by ideology. He convinces the world that control disguised as freedom is still noble. And then the final clue, Secret Empire. When it's revealed that Captain America was a Hydra agent all along, fans were outraged. But think about it, and Hydra is order. Hydra is the manifestation of Doom's dream, a world united under one will, and while Marvel tried to dismiss it as cosmic manipulation, maybe that story wasn't a retcon. Maybe it was the closest glimpse to the truth we've ever gotten. Imagine the irony. The greatest villain in Marvel history, hiding behind the mask of its greatest hero. But this isn't just about conspiracy or symbolism. Let's talk science. In multiple comics, Doom has demonstrated body switching. Technology went from his infamous battle with the Purple Man to his experiments with the Ovoid race, where he learned to transfer consciousness between bodies with mere thought. That specific power has no defined limit. Doom could theoretically project his consciousness across time, and even into a preserved body. So what if, sometime after one of Doom's apparent deaths, perhaps during his experiments to save his mother's soul from Mephisto, discovered a version of reality where Captain America was dead, preserved in ice?
A timeline between timelines.
A clean vessel waiting for resurrection. Doom, seeking redemption, seeking a chance to control not through fear but through reverence, seizes the opportunity. He abandons his ruined body and transfers his mind into the frozen corpse of Steve Rogers, reborn as the perfect man. That explains everything. The unnatural preservation, the shift in demeanor, the new tactical coldness. Even his speech patterns subtly evolve. Compare early 1940s Cap to modern Cap, the syntax changes. The warmth fades. The conviction grows, but it's a different kind of conviction. Less belief, more control. And here's something chilling. In Infinity War, when Thanos snaps half the universe away, watch Steve's reaction. Everyone else breaks. Thor is shattered. Tony is desperate. But Steve? He's eerily calm. He just says, "Oh God," quietly, almost with recognition, as if he's seen such balance before. As if he understands destruction as necessary order. That's not the voice of the idealist Steve Rogers. That's the mind of Victor Von Doom, the man who has seen universes die and rebuild themselves through sacrifice. But Doom's greatest flaw has always been hubris. He can't truly hide who he is, and small cracks leak through the mask. Look at how Cap constantly questions authority but insists on leading. Look at his obsession with structure, with hierarchy. Even among Avengers, he's always the strategist, the manipulator of emotions. He inspires through control, not chaos. That's Doom's essence. Now imagine this, when Cap wielded Mjolnir, fans saw it as proof of his purity. But what if that wasn't worthiness? What if Doom, with all his mystic knowledge, engineered it? Doom has interacted with the enchantment of Mjolnir before. He studied Asgardian runes. He could have manipulated the spell, aligning his consciousness with the righteousness of Rogers, body creating the illusion of worthiness. When the hammer lifted, it wasn't the triumph of goodness. It was the perfection of manipulation. The universe didn't see Doom, it saw Rogers. The deception was complete. That moment and that single swing of Mjolnir wasn't just fan service. It was Doom's final victory. The man once seen as the tyrant of Latveria now stood as the moral leader of the entire universe, commanding gods themselves. And nobody questioned it. But there's more. In the comics, Doom has always sought to conquer death, not for power, but for redemption. In infamous Iron Man, Doom becomes a hero. He literally takes up the mantle of Iron Man after Tony's fall, claiming he's changed. But what if that story wasn't symbolic? What if it was foreshadowing? Doom doesn't just want to be a hero, he is one. Because in one universe and in one strand of reality, he already succeeded. He's Captain America. Every speech Cap gives about duty, every warning about unchecked power, every battle fought not for victory but for balance and echoes. Doom's philosophy of absolute order. When he says we don't trade lives, it's not compassion. It's calculation. He values stability above everything. Doom's code? Doom's mind. But if this is true, if Steve Rogers is Doom reborn, then where is the real Steve? And here's where the timeline fractures again. In Avengers Endgame, Cap travels back in time to live with Peggy Carter. Everyone assumed it was closure. But what if that wasn't Steve going back? What if it was Doom returning to his lab? The time device wasn't just a tool, it was a door. And when he vanished, he didn't go to Peggy. He went home. That's why we never see the reunion. We see the goodbye, but not the after. Because the after isn't romantic. It's scientific. Doom, now hidden behind the perfect mask, retires not to love but to plan. To rebuild. To watch the world he shaped from behind the curtain. And the final clue is in the symbolism of the shield. Everyone believes the shield is pure, vibranium, indestructible, reflecting only truth. But Doom's armor too is built from near indestructible alloys, layered with mystic sigils that mirror the same circular design. Both are reflections of defense, not aggression. Both are tools of control disguised as protection. It's almost poetic. The man who once hid behind a mask of metal now hides behind a mask of virtue. And when Sam Wilson takes up the shield, it's not just a passing of legacy, when it's a test. Doom has always groomed successors, always studied human potential. Passing the shield is his way of seeing if his philosophy can outlive him, if order can survive through others without him pulling the strings. But something went wrong. Doom, living as Rogers, begins to feel. The serum amplifies not just strength, but emotion. And the longer he lives as Cap, the more fragments of Steve's original consciousness bleed through. Memories of Brooklyn, of Peggy, of loss. These aren't just echoes. They're resistance. The real Steve buried deep within, fighting back from the inside, trying to reclaim his body. Inside that perfect vessel, the war begins, poignant and invisible, but violent beyond words. Imagine two minds trapped within one body, one forged by purity and faith, the other carved from intellect and domination. Steve Rogers and Victor Von Doom, both men defined by their absolute belief in what's right, yet driven by completely opposite definitions of righteousness. One believes in freedom, the other believes in control, and both, in their own ways, think the world cannot survive without them. For years, the merge remained stable. Doom, now controlling the body, rationalizes the flickers of emotion he feels as chemical side effects of the serum. The warmth when he sees children wave the flag, the grief at funerals, the quiet admiration of ordinary men, and to him, these are just distractions, remnants of a dead man's soul echoing inside him. But slowly something shifts. Doom begins to dream, and Victor Von Doom doesn't dream. In his dreams, he's standing in Brooklyn, hearing swing music, feeling sunlight on his face, smelling the bread from a corner bakery he's never visited. He sees Peggy Carter's face, or a face he doesn't know, and he wakes up trembling. He doesn't understand it yet, but he's being haunted by the soul of Steve Rogers. Meanwhile, the world idolizes Captain America more than ever. The Avengers disband, reform, fall apart again, and still the world looks to him. He's the unshakable constant, the man who never ages, never falters, never doubts. But that's the problem. Real humans do doubt. They waver. They break. And when something never cracks, people start to notice. Tony Stark noticed first. Not through friendship, but through data. After Endgame, Tony had designed a failsafe algorithm that tracked emotional patterning in his teammates during missions. It was meant to predict trauma, to prevent breakdowns before they happened. When Tony ran it on Cap, the algorithm broke. Literally crashed. Cap's biometric feedback during battle was too consistent. Heart rate, adrenaline spikes, microtremors, and all perfectly regulated, even under extreme stress. As if every reaction was calculated, Tony, before his death, had written one last encrypted note about it. He didn't call it suspicion. He called it a paradox wearing a star. That note would later fall into the hands of Bruce Banner. And that's where things truly start to unravel. Banner, a scientist obsessed with duality, recognizes the pattern instantly. The calm exterior, the hidden turbulence. He's seen it before and in himself. Two minds sharing one vessel. When he runs Steve's DNA through gamma-based resonance scans, he finds something horrifying. There are irregularities and fragments of neural mapping inconsistent with human origin. Areas of the brain that show residual arcane activity. The kind that only exists when magic has tampered with biology. Banner confronts Steve in secret, in a quiet Eschilde safe house far away from cameras. He doesn't accuse him. He just asks, "Who are you really?" And for the first time, Steve hesitates. That single pause is enough. Banner sees the truth, not with his eyes, but with that primal instinct of one divided soul recognizing another. But Banner stops him. He says, "If you ever feel it talking to you, don't ignore it. It's not done with you yet." And Steve, or Doom, whoever is in control at that moment, just looks at him, cold and quiet, and says, "I don't have time for ghosts." But that night, the dreams return stronger. He's back in that alleyway in Brooklyn, fists raised, facing bullies twice his size. He hears a voice, "I can do this all day." The phrase that defines Steve Rogers. But now, when Doom whispers it in his sleep, it sounds different, like a threat, not hope. The phrase becomes a mantra of domination. "I can do this all day. Because I never lose." The subconscious war between Doom and Rogers grows violent. Memories mix with incantations, science with emotion. Doom's mind starts to fracture. He sees his mother's face overlap with Peggy's. Latveria's mountains blend into 1940s New York streets. Every time he looks in the mirror, his reflection flickers between soldier and monarch. The serum, designed to amplify what's within, doesn't know which consciousness to empower anymore. It's tearing him apart molecule by molecule. And yet the world doesn't see it. To them, Captain America is perfect. Even more composed. More strategic, more prophetic than before. He predicts enemy tactics, foresees disasters, leads missions with almost supernatural precision. That's Doom's intellect at work. But every act of heroism now carries a strange cost. The casualties rise. The moral compromises deepen. Steve begins to justify sacrifices that the old Rogers would never have accepted. The few for the many, he says. Sometimes peace needs obedience. Those are Doom's words, not Steve's. Sam Wilson starts noticing it too. During a mission in Madripoor, he witnesses Cap interrogating a captured mercenary, not with compassion, but with a calm cruelty that chills him. No threats, no shouting, just surgical precision. When the man refuses to speak, Cap breaks his arm without blinking. Later, Sam confronts him. Steve simply says, "You can't negotiate with chaos." That's when Sam knows something is deeply wrong. Meanwhile, deep inside Steve's psyche, Rogers' original consciousness is clawing its way back. He begins to piece together what happened. Flashes of Victor's experiments, memories of Latveria, the green glow of mystic energy. He realizes that his body was stolen, hijacked in the frozen silence between life and death. Doom didn't kill him out of hatred. Doom chose him because he admired him. To Doom, Steve was the ultimate vessel, the embodiment of what he could never be, universally loved. Now Steve wants to take it back, but Doom won't let go easily. Inside their shared mind, it's like two kingdoms at war, one built of steel and logic, the other of heart and memory. Rogers fights with emotion, Doom fights with intellect, and as they struggle, the physical world begins to mirror the chaos within. Cap starts losing control of his powers. His reflexes glitch. His strength spikes unpredictably. His voice changes mid-sentence, tone fluctuating between empathy and arrogance. To the Avengers, it looks like trauma. To Rogers, it's survival. To Doom, it's infestation. The breaking point comes when Doctor Strange notices the disturbance. Through the eye of Agamotto, Strange sees an anomaly surrounding Cap's aura. Two overlapping souls, one human, one mystic. He realizes that this is no ordinary possession. This is a cosmic graft. Doom didn't just transfer his mind, he stitched it into the timeline itself. Removing him could unravel reality. Strange tries to warn him, but Doom is ready. When Strange confronts him in the sanctum, Cap's eyes flash with a green hue. The air thickens with magic far older than the serum. Strange barely escapes with his life. Afterward, he tells Wong that wasn't Steve Rogers. That was Doom, perfected. News begins to spread through the hero. Community, whispers, questions. Why does Captain America know so much about Latverian technology? Why does his strategic planning mirror Doom's exact military doctrines? Why during one mission did he speak fluent Latverian in his sleep? And yet no one dares accuse him. Who would question Captain America? But Doom's control starts to crumble. The serum, meant to enhance a singular purpose, can't stabilize duality forever. The two minds start to bleed together, forming something new, not Steve. Not Victor, but a fusion of both. A man who believes in justice but defines it through domination. A savior with the heart of a tyrant. One night while meditating, something Rogers never used to do, But Doom always did, and he feels a strange pull. He opens his eyes and sees himself, the younger Steve, standing before him in the astral plane. Steve's spirit says, "You think wearing my face makes you me?" Doom's eyes narrow. "I am what you could never be, defective. You killed who I was. No, I improved you." They fight not with fists, but with willpower. Two souls battling for command of one destiny. Every punch ripples through reality. Cities tremble. The line between dream and world blurs. When Doom gains ground, the world grows colder. More rigid, authoritarian regimes thrive. Order spreads like infection. When Steve pushes back, compassion blooms and protests rise. People question power. Chaos breathes again. The entire planet becomes a battlefield for their invisible war. And then the unthinkable. Doom begins to lose not because Steve is stronger, but because he's human. The serum amplifies emotion as much as intellect. And Steve's memories. Peggy's laughter. Bucky's loyalty. The feeling of dancing for the first time start to infect Doom's logic. For the first time in his existence, Doom feels guilt. Real piercing guilt. He sees the faces of every person he's ever manipulated. What if surrendering control is the ultimate form of strength? The paradox tears him apart. Meanwhile, Steve's allies piece together the truth. Banner, Sam, and Strange work together to build a psychic extraction device, a mix of gamma energy, mystic wards, and Stark's AI remnants. Their plan, separate the two consciousnesses before they destroy each other. But Doom, sensing the trap, goes rogue. He abandons the Avengers, disappearing into the shadows, not to hide, but to prepare. He realizes something horrifying. If they extract him, he'll die, not just physically and existentially. His soul is bound to Steve's serum, fused by science and sorcery. The only way to survive is to become Steve completely, to erase the last traces of Victor Von Doom forever. And that's when Steve's spirit does something even Doom doesn't expect, and he offers him a deal. "You can have the body," Steve says, "but you have to live by my code. You have to protect them, all of them, even when they don't deserve it." Doom hesitates. "You'd give yourself up for them?" Steve smiles. "That's what we do." Doom is silent. For the first time in centuries, he doesn't know what to say. He's faced gods and demons, but never a man willing to die for ideals without expecting control in return. He feels something crack inside him, admiration, maybe even love for humanity. He agrees. The merge stabilizes again. The world sees Captain America stronger than ever, leading with renewed hope. But something's different. He no longer speaks like Doom, nor entirely like Rogers. His words carry weight, but also warmth. His eyes, once cold steel blue, now flicker with a faint green glow. Doom's legacy hidden beneath compassion. To the world, he's still Captain America, but inside, Doom and Rogers have become one. The perfect synthesis of logic and morality. The man the universe didn't know it needed. Yet peace never lasts in the Marvel universe. Because somewhere in Latveria, in a ruined castle under layers of time, a recording activates. It's a hologram of Victor Von Doom, recorded before his consciousness transfer. He stares directly at the camera and says, "If you're seeing this, then I've succeeded. But remember, even perfection can fracture. Every paradise needs a storm." The message ends. The camera pans to a figure standing beside the projector, Bucky Barnes holding the shield. And he whispers, "Steve, what did you do?" "The storm is coming.